All right, we did it. We just modified our first tiny house and also learned all of the tools that you would need to understand how you would create your own tiny house, of course. But I will get into the next steps in a second. But now that you finish your tiny house, you probably want to export your plans. And usually when you're looking for tiny house plans on the internet, you can buy plans that are pre-made, or you can get someone to draft plans for you for a fee, and usually that costs a couple hundred if not thousands of dollars. But what we've done, we've created a generate plans tool which will allow you to create your own tiny house plans of the model that you've just created in 3D. And this generate plans tool is essentially your draftsperson that's sitting in the computer for you. So we've trained the software to create the plans for you and draw the dimensions, so you can take the plans and give them to your builder of choice if you want to get your tiny house built. So it's a great tool to communicate with your builder. Or if you want to DIY your tiny house plans, you can use these plans to then communicate with your manufacturers. So let's say your steel framing manufacturer or your trailer manufacturer. It's a great way of communicating with your with the people that you need to talk to. And at the same time, it's going to be much cheaper than having to hire a draftsperson or doing it all yourself by learning an expensive CAD drafting tool. And then of course you also don't have to spend the hours on drafting it by Scratch, of course, as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and generate my plans here, and I'm just going to choose my plans to be A4, and I'm just going to click this big generate plans button now. Just as a reminder, there are more tiny house plans included if you are a business, so you can have other plans like cabinetry plans and electrical plans as well, which are useful if you're building tiny homes professionally. So I'll just click the generate plans button here, and we'll just wait for a second and we'll see my PDF being exported. And this is a great tip here. So you'll see the tiny house name and you will see a basic non-dimensioned floor plan of the tiny house you've just created. But because I'm still on my free trial at the moment, because that's the account that I just created, it doesn't export the full plans that you would get if you were on a full personal plan. So you can see a quick preview here of the plans that you would get if you were on a personal plan. And the personal plan at the moment costs $12 per month. And yeah, this will allow you to export your plans and also keep access to your designs, of course. So what I'm going to do now, I'm quickly going to switch over to a premium plan so I can show you what the plans look like once you exported them, so you can get an understanding of what you get on the personal version. Okay, so I've just switched over to a personal version, and what you will see here that my licensed version has updated. I think my face is covering this a little bit at the moment, but this is what happens once you subscribe to the personal version. And I'll just show you what that looks like once you export the plans with the personal version. So I'll click the generate plans button here, and we'll just wait here for a second. And you'll also see the plan export takes a little bit longer because we're exporting a few more pages than before. And I'll have a look at the export here now. And there we go. So this is the name of the tiny house. Of course, this can be whatever name you wish it to be. And there we go. Now we can see some axonometrics to start with, or isometrics, however you want to call them. And this is just a 1:50 plan. And if you have a larger plan, let's say at A3, it will update to make sure it is the right size to fit the page nicely. And this is just from the other side here, so you can understand what your tiny house looks like. And this is great also to communicate with manufacturers, because they will understand, okay, this is this is the shape of the tiny house. I know what I need to look at here. And there we go. This is the plan view of the tiny house, and you will see all of the changes that we've just made. So for example, the stair here shows up, or the bench seat that we've moved over here, or the window that we've created. Also, this is the door and this is the window. And to give you a quick tip on how to read these plans is we've broken up the dimensions into different layers. So the first layer is the interior layer. So this shows you the distance between interior and exterior walls. So this is a 100 mm exterior wall. Then you've got a huge gap, and then you've got another 100 mm interior wall in this case, and then you have a 1.4 meter space for your interior bathroom here, of course. And then you will see the 800 millimeters for this interior wall here, another 800 millimeters for your interior door, and then another 600 millimeters for your last wall panel here. And just as a quick tip here as well, the style of these plans are realistic, meaning that it will show you the materials rather than being a more traditional plan view. So it's personal preference. I personally like looking at more realistic plans because I understand what the materials will be once I build this as well, of course. And then the next layer here are the interior spacings. So in this case here, we've got, again, my 100 millimeters for my exterior wall, and then we've got a 600 millimeter cabinet, my 1.8 meter space, and then we've got our stairs here. We've got a bit of a gap because we didn't put a cabinet in here, but then we've got our dishwasher, a tall pantry, and then our fridge. Then we have our gap here for our walls, and then we have a 500 millimeter cabinet, and then our shower here. And then of course, if you go from the other side, you will see the dimensions for the cabinets on the other side. As a quick tip, if you see funny small dimensions, so let's say if you have a 25 millimeter dimension or something like that in between your cabinets, it could be that you accidentally overlapped cabinets. And so what I would do then, I would try to understand where is that overlap happening, go back into the model, and then look and see if there's a gap in between the cabinets and rectify that. And if you have made everything well, you usually end up with dimensions that are really easy to read, because the tiny house designer just picks up on how you've designed the house in 3D and well, then gives you those dimensions. So if there's an overlap, there will also be an overlap in the plans, of course. And then you have the exterior dimensions here to keep going, and then yeah, so these are the window dimensions. Of course, we have nothing else on this facade, so this is just one window or door. And then we've got the feature window on this side, and then we've got our triple fold window here, a smaller window, and then another small window over here, as well as another small window over here. And then the last layer are the exterior dimensions, which are 8 meters by 2.4 meters. Just as a quick tip, of course, the wall thickness here doesn't include the exterior cladding. So at the moment, this is the framing, which is usually 90 millimeters in this arrangement, and then a 10 millimeter interior lining. And if you have exterior cladding, this would be added on top of that because it's overhanging the framing, if you think about it. So you might have another, let's say, 35 millimeters on every side. And because of that, you usually plan the tiny house to be a little bit smaller than what the road regulations allow, so you don't accidentally go over the the maximum exterior size that you would need to comply with. So this is just a quick tip to keep in mind. And there we go. Then we can see the mezzanine plan here, which is the exact same thing as the floor plan, but only this time it shows you, well, the mezzanine plan. Or the loft plan essentially, and then this shows just the size of the panels, the loft panels, and then the size of the interior cabinets, and then any other objects that we have here. But of course, there's nothing else in here. It's a fairly simple plan, so we don't see any other dimensions. And then we have our roof plan here, and it shows us exactly where the gap is between the different roof sections. It also picks up on the thickness of the interior wall that's behind that gap here for the roof sections, and then as well as the apex here for those gable roofs. Of course, if you've got shifted apexes, you might have more of these dimensions here. And then here are the elevations, and this just shows you the exterior of the tiny house of every side. We've got multiple elevations here, of course, as well, but this would just point out where the windows are on the facade, how tall the windows are, how wide they are, and then again also where the roof is broken up. It also picks up on that, which is quite handy. And again, just another thing here, what you'll see, you have 1.1 meter sill height for all of these windows, and all of the windows are also 900 millimeters high, meaning that they all line up, and because of that you get nice clean dimensions. If you have windows that are jumping up and down and you've got them at different heights, you might have a lot more dimensions popping up here, so you would just need to understand where the windows are placed. But that's why I personally like aligning my windows, which creates a cleaner design. just is easier to read for the eye, I guess. And at the same time, the dimensions are also easier to read because everything is the same, and it will also make it easier to build because you don't always have to guess where's this window and where's that window, if that makes sense. And then this dimension here pulls out the height of the eave, which in this case is 3,545. And just keep in mind, this trailer here is 600 millimeters high as well. So this is just defining the size of the building rather than the trailer. And this here is the front elevation. And this is our picture window that we've created. Of course, I've already explained the other dimensions, so it's pretty straightforward now. Of course, it picks up on the apex here. And it's not picking up on the dimensions of the other side of the roof because that would show up on the back plan. So this is only picking up on the dimensions of the roof that's closest to us, if that makes sense. And then we've got the other elevation here, which is a bit more simple because there's less going on. And then we've got the back elevation, and just like what I said, we've got the height here of the apex, and then we've got the top height here as well. So we've got 105 millimeter difference, if that makes sense. And because we have a window that's sitting in the middle here, it's breaking up those window dimensions and saying, okay, from the left side of the apex is 275 and on the right side of the apex is 325, which just might be useful to understand where the framing is running. So this is quite handy to understand where this is sitting in relation to the apex. And these are our interior sections here. And these sections here show, well, where the interior cabinets are placed, how high they are, and where the walls are, of course, as well. And so this is just a really good understanding of, okay, have you accidentally messed up the loft, for example? Is it too low? And so this is just showing where the loft heights are here, for example, or are maybe the cabinets a little bit too low, but in this case, they all end up at 900 mil tall, so we did a good job here. And then we've got the sections from the other side. And there we go. So these are the sections here. And this is the joinery schedule. And this just breaks down all of the windows and doors that we have in the design. And what you'll see here, these are the exterior doors. And these here are the exterior windows. And these are the skylights. And the good thing about this plan here is you can actually specify this further if you wish. And this comes back to the joinery schedule properties that I have mentioned just at the start of the course. And so if you go back in here, let's say if I select the door, this one over here, you will see the joinery schedule properties here. So at the moment, the opening direction is set to the bottom because that is the default of a joinery object. But of course, this should probably be set to the left or to the right. The glazing type is double glazing at the moment. That's totally okay. At least here in New Zealand, you might need to have triple glazing if you're in a colder country, but I would just contact the manufacturers to understand what kind of glazing you need. You can even go in and change your jam finish to communicate with your joinery manufacturer, or I guess door and window manufacturer if you want to call them that. The glass type, you can choose from different glass types that you might encounter. And this here is the panel ID. So the panel ID will help you identify the different doors and windows. So let's say we only have one door. So this one here is panel ID 1. But because we have different doors and different windows, we want to give them different numbers. So this is number 1, this is number 3. I'll just quickly deselect my walls here again so I can easily select those. This is number 3, this is number 1 again. Oops, sorry, this is not number 1. There we go. This is number 2. This is number 3, 4, and 5. So we actually did a good job here of naming these. And then we can also have a look at the skylights here. At the moment, this is still panel ID 0, so we might want to call this ID 1. And actually, this is ID 0 as well, so we actually want to give this ID 1 here as well to make sure everything makes sense. Of course, once you've made changes, this doesn't directly update. You would have to generate the plans again to make sure that they all match up. And then all of the changes that you've added in here would also pop up here, of course, as well. But just to get back to the properties, you can even go in and put in a name for your colors. So you can just call it whatever you want the color to be called. So usually joinery manufacturers have different names for their colors, so you would just want to specify the names that joinery manufacturer has. So let's say in New Zealand we've got color steel, which is very common here, and let's say we want this to be iron sand, which is one of their colors, and that way the manufacturer knows what this color should be, but I'll just leave it blank. If you want to add some notes, you can do that as well. They will just show up in here. If you have a recycled window or door, you can just tick that here, so the manufacturer doesn't create that window for you, but you still understand that this is a window that will be in your build. And a wall thickness option is left here for you as well. So at the moment, it will just grab the wall thickness that's preset in the model. But if you know, for example, that this wall here will be a little bit thicker because you have a 100 mil structural buildup, but you might have a 50 millimeter cladding because of the shingles, you might want the reveal to allow for that when you're talking to your manufacturer. So this might need to be 150 millimeters. So you need to think about the total cladding thickness, the total wall thickness, including the cladding, to make sure the manufacturer creates the right thickness window here to allow for that. So just make sure that you understand what cladding thicknesses you have to keep the windows and doors the right depth, if that makes sense in the end. But yeah, that's how the export works, and that's a good essential plan set to talk to your builder and manufacturers or DIY of. And if you're a builder, we actually have more plans that you can export, and we've got a bit of a preview in here. So you also get perspectives if you are a business, and you get electrical plans, so you'll be able to specify your electrical items in 3D, similar to what we just did with our, let's say, cabinets, for example. You can pop them on the walls and they will show you your electrical items on the plans, and even together with the heights of exactly where they're placed, so you can communicate with your electrician. And it also gives you a breakdown of your electrical items, so it's a schedule of all your electrical items in the tiny house. And since you also need to communicate with cabinet makers if you're in your business, we can also export cabinetry plans in the business version, which will give you a breakdown of all of the cabinets that are in the tiny house to make communication easy within your team. But yeah, if you want to find out more about that, just let me know and we can have a chat about that. And yeah, I'd love to help you out with your business. But yeah, that's how the general plans tools work. And that's basically everything for this course, and I will just wrap it up soon and give you a quick rundown of what you can do next once you have exported your plans.